Genesis chapter 11, King James Version. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said to one another, Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build a city and a tower, whose top may reach into heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men build. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they all have one language. And this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth. These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. And Shem lived after he begot Arphaxad 500 years and begat sons and daughters. Arphaxad lived 35 years and begot Sarai. And Arphaxad lived after he begot Sarai 403 years and begot sons and daughters. Sarai lived 30 years and begot Eber. And Sarai lived after he begot Eber 403 years and begot sons and daughters. And Eber lived 430 years and begot Peleg. And Eber lived after he begot Peleg 430 years and begot sons and daughters. And Peleg lived 30 years and begot Reu. And Peleg lived after he begot Reu 209 years and begot sons and daughters. And Reu lived 230 years and begot Serug. And Reu lived after he begot Serug 207 years and begot sons and daughters. And Serug lived 30 years and begot Nahor. And Serug lived after he begot Nahor 200 years and begot sons and daughters. And Nahor lived 29 years and begot Terah. And Nahor lived after he begot Terah 190 years and begot sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years and begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran begot Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. And Abram and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife, Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and the father of Iscah. But Sarai was barren, she had no child. And Terah took Abram, his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur to the Chaldees, to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran, and built there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can, a little bit of commentary. I'm actually kind of want to go back to Genesis 10. The Noah's descendants, that whole bunch of names, and his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, having all those kids and spreading out amongst the land. It says in Genesis chapter 10, which was from yesterday, Genesis chapter 10, verse 10, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. This was Nimrod, remember from chapter 10, verse 8. And Cush begot Nimrod. Nimrod is from Ham's lineage. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. This is verse 9. Therefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. Verse 10, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. So I'm going to go back to where we're at today, Genesis chapter 11. And it says, this is chapter 11, verse 1 and 2. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech, and it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and dwelt there. So, not only was chapter 10 giving you this whole lineage of these Noah and his 3 sons, and kind of showing you kind of where they went off to and did, they were giving you a preview kind of what's happening here. Probably in the next few chapters for sure of Genesis, but this is, it's definitely foreshadowing the things from chapter 10 is foreshadowing activity here in chapter 11. So I'm going to go back to chapter 10. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be confusing. Just please take it slow. Pause this and look if you need more time. I'm just trying to connect the dots a little bit, because I was really wondering about some of this stuff yesterday. Chapter 10 verses 25 specifically, 25, and unto Eber, and this is, Eber is from Shem's lineage, and unto Eber were born 2 sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days the earth divided. So it sounds like it's referring to the Tower of Babel. It looks like Peleg is Shem's great-grandson, and Nimrod is Ham's grandson, so this is somewhere in the same vicinity. Peleg was born when the earth was divided, which could mean the Tower of Babel and the activity that we just read there. Nimrod, specifically, this mighty hunter before the Lord. This is from chapter 10. chapter 10, verse 10. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. So it sounds like Nimrod was all that, you know. He had people talking about him. And he was a mighty hunter. He was a mighty man before the Lord. And he had a kingdom called Babel. And his cousin, Eber, who's the son of Peleg, which they said by the time Peleg was born, there was division in the land. So this is all in that same time period. It sounds like that's when Babel kind of fell or collapsed as well. And the people were divided. We're going to go back to chapter 11. I'm sorry that I'm going back and forth between these two chapters, but they have a really interesting connection. It's very hazy in chapter 10, especially if you're reading it for the first time. There's a lot of names that can be tricky to pronounce, and then there's just kind of this tiny skimming through what is in more detail here in chapter 11. And so in the land of Shinar, which is, I guess, Nimrod's land, over there in Babel, the kingdom of Babel, they said to one another, this is Genesis chapter 11, verse 3, and they said to one another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar, and they said, go, let us build a city in a tower whose top may reach into heaven. Let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. So I guess they knew. I don't know how they knew, but they knew that was coming. Strangely enough, maybe if they didn't do that, maybe that wouldn't have happened. Who knows? But the next verse, verse 5, and the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. He's already spotting. He's like, he's not having it, He doesn't want it. Chapter 11, verse 6, and the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they all have one language, and this they begin to do. He's already seeing that we're about to repeat the same stuff that we were doing before, just going a little too high and mighty about ourselves in a way that is going to lead to self-destruction. So God is just already, and this is just, let's see, this is from Shem, Ham, and Japheth's offspring. This is around their grandchildren's adult time, or the great-grandchildren coming up. This is somewhere in there, the third and fourth generation after the flood. And they're already doing this stuff. They're already getting into mischief that's just not for their best interest. And God's just not having it. He's like, they're already, this is what they're doing, And so I gotta scatter this. I gotta separate them a little bit. And that's what he did. And the name, it says, now I could be wrong about this, but it all seems like this is all tied into partially with chapter 10. But the Lord scattered, this is verse 8, Genesis chapter 11, verse 8. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore, the name of it is called Babel, because the Lord did there confine the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad the face of all the earth. So he's trying to prevent us from repeating our mistakes. And thus, this sounds like around that time that Peleg, the son of Eber, which is the grandson of Shem, when the earth was divided. This sounds like around that time. And it sounds like Nimrod, it says his kingdom. I don't know if he was the king, but considering that he was this mighty man before the Lord, this mighty hunter, And he was so well known that people would say these things about him. And it says that his kingdom, it almost sounds as if he had a lot to do with it. Whatever was going on here with this building of this tower to heaven. And that's just my observation. I would love to hear what anybody else thinks about this. I'm probably thinking too deeply, but I figure if we're going to really be looking at these scriptures, then it would be kind of fun to just brainstorm a little bit and kind of, why not look into the details of a verse? I would love to hear what anyone else has to say about this. What did they find interesting? Do they see a connection? No? And what did you see? I just feel as though there's always something new to catch from the scriptures. It doesn't matter how many times you read it. Okay, so I'm just going to go on from there. The latter end of chapter 11 just talks about the generations of Shem specifically. We're kind of running off from Japheth and Ham, and it's about Shem. The focus is on Shem and his lineage. And from that time, there are men having children. There's going down the line of the lineage until it reaches Abraham or Abram. And as it's going down, there's a pattern. I mean, just like real life, people, have kids, and then the kids grow up and have kids, and the kids grow up and have kids. But specifically what I noticed was that the men would have a child earlier on in their years. They lived several hundred years, not like a millennium like before, but they lived significantly long lives. And they each had a child. Maybe it's their firstborn, it seems, because it's the child that seems to stand out, and then they just begot more sons and daughters. So the firstborn seems to have a significance. I'm sure this has a lot to do with Jesus Christ. But the firstborn, when they do have that child, the child is named, and it seems that they have the child early in life, like in the 20s and 30s or something like that. They have, let me see an example. I'm going to bring up a couple. These are the generations of Shem. I'm going to pass Shem a little bit and go to his son Arphaxad, who lived 35 years. And then he begot Salah. Salah, he lived 30 years before he begot Eber, and Eber lived 4 and 30 years. That's 34 years. So they're all just having like their firstborn child in their late 20s, early 30s-ish time period, and then later on have more sons and daughters. I also noticed that kind of through this time period of these generations going down, for the most part, the lifeline, like the lifespan, decreases significantly. Shem is living until he's, what does it say, 500 years, around 500 years. Arphaxad, he lived 403 years. Salah lived 403. Peleg lived 430. Peleg lived 209 years. In fact, let me go back, because I don't want to misquote this. Sorry, guys. Shem lived 500 years. Arphaxad lived 403 years. Salah lived 403 years. Eber lived 430 years. Peleg lived 209 years. Ru lived 207. Serug lived 200. Nahor lived 119 years, excuse me. And then we go to Terah, who in the end of this chapter, verse 32, he dies at 205 years. So significantly, we're going from Noah, who I think he lived 950 years before he died. So he was one of the last, I think it seems, one of the last millennial lives. Like, that was just extremely long. From then on, it went from like 500 and down to, by the end of this chapter 11, verse 32, 205 years of life, which is still really long for us, but it's significantly less. And it sounds like the bloodline was blessed, but it sounds like God's still going in line with, especially seeing how we were just kind of going back to our old ways after the flood. Just 3 generations down already, we're going back. It just seems like he's ready to shorten the lives again, because he already knows what's coming. So significantly, as time went on, the lifespan became less and less, and we go all the way down to Abram. It's kind of where we're stopping here with this lineage. And he has, let's see, verse 27. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran begot Lot. So Lot is technically Abram's nephew. Abram has his wife Sarai. She's barren. She's not conceiving in their marriage. And Terah took, this is verse 31, Terah took Abram, his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur to the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there. Haran died in verse 28. So it looks like Lot was taken under his grandfather's wings, and they're traveling. But Terah dies at 205 years. He died in Haran, which is very interesting. Haran is the name of his son, and then there's a place called Haran. I wonder if there's any association with that. Was it? I won't even. I won't even say it. I'm like, was it named after him? I just said it. But I'm just curious. Always curious about these little tiny details that when you first kind of read through, you're just reading kind of through, and you're not really paying attention to these little tiny things, but they have some kind of significance. That's why it's written in here. So I just wonder, what is that? What is the significance of that? What is that? They went to this place too. The fact that they went to this place that the father was, that Lot's father was named after. Anyway, or maybe he wasn't named after, but they have an identical name, identical spelling. So I just wonder if there's an association. But anyway, I'm running over on the commentary. That's pretty much all I have to say that I noticed about these things, just looking deeper into these scriptures. If you've noticed anything that I haven't touched on, or if you just want to comment on something that I touched on, maybe enlighten me about something that I touched on, please feel free to comment. And, let's unravel and interpret these scriptures the best that we can. Anyway, I appreciate you watching and reading along with me, and I pray that you got something out of this. I also pray that you have a blessed day and many, many, many blessings over you and your life and your families and your loved ones. And I love you. God bless you. Till tomorrow.